Philadelphia Eagles play their first game against the Washington Commanders. The first ever game against the Washington Commanders, formerly the Washington football team, formerly the Washington Redskins. And the Philadelphia Eagles, going to FedEx Field, swept the Washington football team when they were the Washington football team the last time in 2021. This time it's 2022, and the Philadelphia Eagles were playing a foe that was familiar named Carson Wentz, or I guess, do they call him Commander Carson? I don't know. I'm going to talk more about Commander Carson later, but this game was a game where I don't think I started watching it until the end of the first quarter. I was driving back from an event, so I didn't really get to see it. I didn't really miss much because the score was 0-0 at that point in time. So once I really started watching, the Philadelphia Eagles just started scoring touchdowns in the second quarter. And by halftime, it was 24-0. The Washington Commanders had negative net passing yards, and Carson Wentz had been sacked 6 times. I believe in the whole game, he had been sacked 9 times, which I heard was something like a Philadelphia Eagles record, and it was a record broken against Carson Wentz. Dominant defensive performance for the Eagles, the second straight week where the Eagles allowed less than 10 points. Again, the second straight week where the Eagles scored 24 points, 0 points in the second half. I want to be one of those fans who comes out and gloats about this, gloats about the fact that the Eagles are 3-0. I love being 3-0, but what you have to understand is that there are 14 more games in this season. Now that there are 17 games in a season and not 16, there's more games. There's more games to play. Therefore, more ways in which you can screw up. I want to be one of those, because by nature I am a pessimist. Being an NFL fan and being an Eagles fan for more than 20 years, more like I'd say 25 years almost, maybe 26. I've seen a lot of stuff. I've seen this team start out 3-0 and not go to the playoffs. So making sure that we're running this consistently and we are not kind of getting too much of ourselves against inferior opponents. Definitely, I do feel better about our win against the Lions because the Lions are significantly better on offense, and beating Minnesota last week. So it's not like our opponents are not quality opponents. Like, the Lions are better than they usually are. The Vikings have a winning record. They beat the Green Bay Packers and Aaron Rodgers. They absolutely slugged them. So I do feel better about where the Eagles are, but it doesn't feel good that they aren't doing anything in the second half of these games. I get it. When you're blowing a team out at a certain period of time, you're just trying to milk the clock, play defense, bend but don't break. And they definitely did that in the Minnesota game and in the Washington Commanders game. But the play was just really lackluster. It just seemed like they were letting too many points go on the field. Like, they left it too much on the field. And I would like to see some more third, possibly fourth quarter scoring. Again, I get it. When it's the fourth quarter and you're up 24-0 or 24-2, you're not really trying to score. You're just trying to milk the clock. But I would just like to see more consistency. I guess if there's one gripe to have, that is the one major gripe to have. Jalen Hurts continued his offensive slugfest, over 300 passing yards, this time 3 passing touchdowns, which was something he really missed in the first week and the second week. A.J. Brown got in the end zone. Devontae Smith had a huge game. Dallas Goedert got in the end zone. And that's really what you would like to see from the offense. Just more consistency. Because I see some really great things from Jalen Hurts, and then like when the team was up 24-0, I felt like the play calling needed to be better. I felt like the play calling needed to be smarter. I felt like running the ball would have been more effective. And I get it. Look, the Washington Commanders, they're better at stopping the run. They built that huge defensive line of like Jonathan Allen and Montez Sweat, and Chase Young isn't on the field, but you really catch my drift. It seemed like they were able to stop the run a lot better. The Eagles really weren't able to flash the running game. So we really had to rely on Jalen Hurts' arm. And for the second quarter, when we scored all of our points, we were able to take a big lead, and the Washington Commanders were unable to catch up with us. But I would like to see more smart play calling instead of passing the ball in the third quarter when you're claiming, oh, we're just trying to run the clock out. Just run the clock out. Don't be afraid to do it when you're up 24-0. It's not like we were up 28-3, which is not a very good score to be up by 28-3, but making sure that we are making the clock go down to 0. The only real gripe that I will have, I'm sick and tired of seeing Boston Scott in on short yardage situations. It doesn't make any sense in my mind. He's not a short yardage back. He's the smallest back that we have. He's 5'5", 5'6". He's not a power back. So when it's 1st and 10 at the 1 yard line, at our own 1 yard line, and we could get a safety, it's not a very smart idea to be handing the ball off to Boston Scott, because yes, he is fast, he is quick, but he is small. And not saying that he's a bad player, but he's not the kind of guy who I would want in short yardage. It just doesn't make any sense. It would make more sense for Miles Sanders to be out there, because Miles Sanders is much more of a power back than Boston Scott is. But again, these are only 2 gripes that I have. The Philadelphia Eagles won the football game. Impressive by the fact that they were able to make so many stops on defense to carry over from last week. It really seems like the defensive backfield is much improved with the additions of James Bradbury and Chauncey, the safety that we got from the Saints in that trade. Chauncey Gardner, I think that's what his name was. Just much improved when it comes to that. And even the weaker spots of the defensive backfield, like Marcus Epps, he seems to be better than he was in previous times. So I am happy about that. Darius Slade did play well. There were no interceptions in this game, but the defensive line again teed off on Carson Wentz for 9 sacks. So that is something that I'm sure that they're going to be looking at and talking about. Anytime you sack a quarterback 9 times or more, that means you had a successful day. And that was, I think the Eagles only had 3 sacks before this game, so it's much improved. Much improved. Then let's make sure that we continue to see that improvement go. Because if the Eagles if the Eagles start to be a complacent team, then that's when you're going to see them not play as well.